Thank you, Mr. Chair, the honourable members. Ms. Ferreira, I'm very happy that climate change is a big issue for this committee. And I also want to ask something about the climate change, because climate change is the biggest threat to humankind. It's the biggest challenge that we face, not just as Europeans, but as mankind. The people of Europe agree that immediate action is needed. And that is why we saw an uprising wave of young and active Europeans protesting for climate action. That's why we saw an election campaign that resolved almost only around this issue. And that's why we saw in the election results a clear mandate for climate action. Ms. von der Leyen followed the Greens' example and announced that she will want to reduce greenhouse gas emission by up to 55% until 2030. Cohesion policy plays a major role in tackling climate change. That is why we propose to use 50% of cohesion spending to tackle climate change directly. Will you, Mrs. Ferreira, ensure that cohesion policy follows this objective? By increasing climate spending to at least 50%, will you strive for the implementation of comprehensible guidelines for climate actions in the DGs under your supervision? And how exactly will you ensure that the operative programs contribute to decarbonize EU funding?
Thank you very much. This is a crucial question because the fight against climate change cannot be allocated here or there. It has got to be horizontal. It has to be embodied in all the policies. And I think this Commission, and in particular the compromise that has been taken by the President-elect, is very clear on those grounds. Of course, for this, we have got to be very specific and to be able to organize in a very careful way the different instruments that we have at our disposal. I think having already the target for 2030 and the target for 2050 calls for huge, massive investment. So this massive investment has got to touch not only the cohesion policy, that's for sure, and we have the thresholds for the different types of regions asking for a minimum engagement that goes from 30% to 60% according to the level of the regions and countries, level of development. Then you have to work with the Innovation Fund and the ETS. You have got to work with the Horizontal Europe. You have got to work with redeployment of the existing instruments, and I'm thinking of InvestEU, of a Globalization Adjustment Fund. So we have got to combine the IB. So we have got to combine all these instruments so that we really make a leap in this path towards the objectives, but we cannot fool ourselves. That will be extremely costly and extremely difficult technically, so that everybody can make the right path at the right speed and an increased speed. So it's very demanding, but it is clearly, the DNA of this Commission, definitely so.